Welcome to the Defense Innovation Certification class or course. Today we're going to be talking about how to certify your officers to use these on duty. First off, we're going to start off with nomenclature, have the officer to understand exactly how the system functions and works. So I have a couple different weapons here. So your opposition, you have a forward charging handle. When you charge it to the rear, you'll be able to feel the resistance when you're charging it back to recognize that you are going to lock back the bolt. I can now press the trigger. Once it's charged back, you can see it's very loose. That is an indication that the bolt is behind and it's ready to fire. There's two different types of safeties on each of the weapons that we offer at Defense Innovation. There's a push button, which you see here. There's a push right here. There you go. There's a red indication. Red means fire. That means that it is live and ready to go. When you do not see that red accent on there, that means that it is in safe. So then you have your safety selector, obviously. You have your safe, fire, and then of course you have on the TRS systems, same type of system, but the movement is a little bit more. So you have fire, safe, safe. So when you enter the range or wherever you're going to be doing the certification, you're going to want to, whatever weapon that you are using, recognize that. Second thing you're going to want your officers to know is the air tank. Air tank does not need to be removed off of the weapon. If you have a rear air option like this, where the tank is actually in the stock, you do not need to take it off. What you'll have is an on and off in between here and there, which can stay on there and it'll hold the air for the entirety. So what you want to do is you want to demonstrate how to fill this up. There is your fill nipple here. You have your gauge on the other side. These tanks are regulated to 3,000 psi, so you'll see a 3 on the gauge here, and that is where you will fill up the air and stop. If you overfill it, you're going to blow a burst disc, and the burst disc is going to allow all the air to come out of the tank. It's a safety precaution. It's not going to explode or anything like that. So you'll have that. That's what they want to have them do, is probably fill it up in the beginning. If it's already full, you don't need to do that. You can go directly into the shooting certification. So you can fill up the tank. That way they know how to maintain and service them. For the TRS, you have a upper and low receiver that you're going to want your officers to know how to deploy and how to open in case of a jam, etc. Go ahead and the pins may be stiff depending on the unit since they're brand new, but they will break in and be easier to open. So open that up. You have access into your low receiver and of course your upper receiver here. You'll have your bolt in here, and it needs to be flush with that hole that you see in this chamber when you close it. This hole needs to be towards the rear. That locks back. You've seen that in the maintenance and service video. Other than that, they can go directly into the shooting test, and the shooting test should be comprised of 3 steps. First step, being able to load a magazine. So you're going to have them take a magazine. You're going to give them the loading rod. This is the loading rod. This is used to lock back the follower in the magazine so you can safely insert the projectiles without having resistance against it, posing possibly a break, or you actually damage the complexity of the round depending on the projectile that you're using. So have them take the loading rod, insert it into the magazine, push it all the way down to signify that the follower is all the way locked back. You'll see all the springs bunched up here. Take your projectiles. You're either going to use inert for the shooting part of it, and then for the impact aspect of the certification course, you'll want to use the PAVA, and we'll go into that and we'll demonstrate that later on this video. So you're going to load the magazine, take your projectiles. These are the inert powder for testing, also for training. And go ahead, it's 20 rounds. There's no time limit here or anything like that. Just have them safely and effectively load up the magazine, It's the last round right here. From here, they can then take the weapon to the range and deploy at 30 to 45 feet at a mannequin about this size or any type of target that you're going to be firing. What you're going to want them to do is always fire center mass right here in this area. Demonstrate all 20 rounds in that area. Center mass is good to go. From that point on, you'll want to go into the impact test, which we're going to show you right now. This is the final step of the certification process. Now, depending on what launcher you have, it doesn't matter. To just understand the nomenclature, and then obviously loading the magazine or the loader. If you have the larger loader there, it's a little bit easier. You're just going to pour the rounds into there. It's 170. But at this point, for the magazine options, you're going to want to demonstrate the nomenclature, which is basically understanding when the tank is full, the safety selector, and then of course knowing how to function and properly load a round into the breech. So once those two steps have done, the final step is actually deploying the projectiles, depending on which ones you want. That's your discretion. At a target, we're about 40 feet away right now from that target. We're going to aim directly in the center of that pallet or any human-sized target. All of our projectiles are meant to be deployed from probably mid-chest range down. So this is going to be your point of impact. It's ideal for all of our projectiles. Right now we're going to be using the inert. The final step for the impact after the shooting test would be having the officers line up and actually take 3 of the PAVA projectiles center mass at the 30-foot range to feel the impact and of course the repercussions of the PAVA. So we're going to go ahead and show you the demonstration here. Take your loaded magazine that the officer loaded up. We'll put it into the magazine well, make sure it's locked into place, charge the charging handle back, and then when the officer is ready to fire, he can deploy those rounds center mass at the target. So go ahead and we'll do that now. There you go. Full magazine. Now keep in mind with the TRS system and on the PTR versions, there is an anti-ball drop here, which will have 2 rounds left over held in there. To remove those 2 rounds afterwards, you'll press up with your finger or take a pen or any type of smaller device that can release the round, and it'll come right out. If when you're doing your shooting test and you put your 20 round magazine directly into there with no 2 rounds in there, you're only going to get 18. So keep that in mind. What I would do is I'd take 2 projectiles and manually put them in there. That way you get your full 20 rounds, and the 2 left over will be perfectly fine for the next guy who puts in his 20 round magazine. Other than that, perfect test, all center mass there. We'll go ahead and we'll demonstrate the final impact test. It's pretty self-explanatory, but we'll show you that now here. Here's the impact certification for the PAVA projectiles. Depending on your department, we only recommend 3 projectiles being deployed on the officer center mass for him to feel the effects of the PAVA and of course the impact effect from the projectile itself. So you can see here you have your LRPXX, which is your law enforcement grade PAVA. We're going to go ahead and we are going to use our magazine here. Remember, 3 projectiles per officer. You can have them line up or you can do 1 at a time. So we are at 35 feet right now. That's recommended range for the impact test. And we're going to obviously aim the center mass all the way down to the stomach area, and that will be an effective test for this. So I'm going to demonstrate more than 3 rounds just to show you exactly where you want to hit on your subject. Here we go. Take the same thing, same procedure as a shooting test. Magazine in, rack it back, deploy. There you go. All center mass. That's where you want. From that point on, the officer will go into first aid right after this.
For the first aid after the impact and PAVA deployment, what you're going to want to do is go to the restroom. If you have an eye washing station at your academy, which most departments do, you'll have the officer utilize that, and you'll want them to flush their eyes and face for at least 15 minutes. The eyes may go away faster than the skin. You'll have the PAVA residue on their clothes. You want to make sure that they remove that clothing and change before they go back inside and newer, because that PAVA residue will stick with them and it will follow them wherever they go for the next couple hours until the pair of clothing is either washed or flushed. So after the impact and the deployment, your officers are going to have severe burning to the face and skin wherever the PAVA really got to, and of course the after effect of their eyes wanting to close, water, the nose is going to drip, sinuses are going to become engorged with the fluid naturally from the body, just to get rid of that burning sensation. So you'll just have them utilize a drinking fountain here, is what we have. You can open, have the water, and you'll flush their eyes and face off. At that point, after the flushing of the particles and the PAVA, what you can have them do is just wash their face with soap, and then that will remove it. But I would do that later on. But the only thing they can really do for now is to flush their eyes, nose, and face of the PAVA, remove their clothing, and they'll be fine from there.